like to call this commission meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you have cell phones, please silence those. Please take a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. I'll begin the roll call this morning with Commissioner Mike Stephen. Here. Commissioner Vicki Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Culberson is here. Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
All present and accounted for. I'm going to break protocol a little bit this morning and get the county clerk up front so she can get to work on what she needs to do this morning. Good morning, Janet.
Good morning.
Morning, Janet.
So we'll just need a motion to go into the Board of Canvassers, please.
So I'll consider a motion to adjourn as Board of County Commissioners and convene as Board of Canvassers.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Board of County Canvassers.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Begin voting with Commissioner Stephen.
Aye.
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 We are now Board of County Canvassers.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today we're here to certify the results of the November 5th general election. Normally I go through the votes that were cast, but today I would like to change it up a little bit, and I'd like to talk about the provisionals first in order to give my staff time to remove the ballots from the envelopes and feed them into the DS-200. The reason for that is we have 421 provisionals, which I recommend to be qualified. And that process will take a while, and I do believe that many of our audience today is very interested in the outcome of the provisionals. We had over 800 provisional ballots that were completed either election day or through the advanced voting process. Each one of these provisionals we research and follow the qualifications that are set out by the Secretary of State's office. I did hand our audience members copies of the regulations that the county clerk's office follows in determining whether a provisional ballot, is to be recommended as qualified or recommended as not qualified. It will be your job today to allow me and go ahead and qualify the ballots that I deemed as being a qualified vote in the provisional envelope. A provisional ballot that I considered qualified, there were several reasons. One being an address change within the county of Leavenworth. If a voter was previously registered in Leavenworth County and moved within Leavenworth County, that ballot should be deemed qualified. If someone in the county had a name change, that they were previously registered, but under an example, under a maiden name, they got married, that would also be deemed a qualified vote. There were some clerical errors, for instance, spelling, something like that. But as long as we could determine that the voter was registered or prior registered within the county, then that also would be deemed a qualified vote. We had some ballots that, say, needed a signature of a voter, and we could count that ballot if the voter came in before the canvass and signed the ballot envelope that they originally had sent their ballot in. We have a couple of those that we've looked at.
Say that one more time. What was that?
Please?
Repeat that, please. What was that?
If a ballot
Right.
envelope comes in, there is a requirement that it must be signed by the voter.
Right.
And we did have a couple of those that came in. We call the voter and request that they come in and sign the ballot. And as long as it is signed before the canvass, then that is a qualified vote. So we had a couple of those that
Okay.
we looked at.
How many total did you have of those?
We had 2 of those.
2.
We did have more, but the voters did come in and sign their.
Well, the 2 are the ones that are disqualified. They didn't.
We have 2 that we're going to consider qualified today.
You're going to consider.
Okay.
Okay.
So, in the over 800 provisionals that we had, I believe that there is 421 that are qualified and should be counted today. We can talk a little bit about the non-qualified. The majority of our non-qualified were people that were not registered in Leavenworth County. They were voters that could have been registered in another county and moved into Leavenworth County. But those would not be deemed qualified because they were not previously registered in Leavenworth County. So those were the majority of our not qualified. We had some that were not qualified due to the fact of the mail. The county clerks across the state of Kansas and the election officials, if ballots are turned in on election day at the polling places or mail is received on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday after the election and is postmarked election day or prior, we are able to count those. This year we were able to count 96 ballots over the last Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But we also received ballots that were either not postmarked or postmarked after the election. And so those would be a non-qualified vote.
But if they were not postmarked and they were received on Wednesday, they would count? They would not count.
They must be postmarked by the post office in order to be considered a qualified ballot.
So if somebody put their ballot in the mail on Tuesday night and you received it Wednesday morning in the mail and it did not have a postmark on it, that ballot, it does not count?
That is correct.
Isn't that the overall rule, though, that all of them are supposed to be postmarked?
That is correct.
And
How does
why?
it go to the post office without being postmarked?
We contact the post office prior to every election and ask that they be postmarked. It was actually kind of amazing. This is the mail we got yesterday, okay? And in this mail that we got yesterday, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just in the mail yesterday, 6 of these ballots, if they would have come in last week, would have been a qualified vote. In the mail yesterday, I got one postmarked, the 2 postmarked the 4th. I've got one postmarked October 30th, another postmarked October 30th. This one's postmarked November 4th. This is the 2nd of November, and this one is the 8th, and this has no postmark.
That's just,
But we received them yesterday, and so we were not able to consider them a qualified vote. A qualified
that's
ballot.
just,
How many years has this extra 3 days been going?
It's been in effect for probably 4 years, possibly more than that, but it has been in effect.
See, my contention is if you require that the ballots be in by 7 p.m. on election day, people are going to plan accordingly. And this law needs to be changed.
Well, that's, it's
Because
that's not up to us
people are putting
today.
their letters in the mail late. October 30th is pretty darn late.
Yeah, you're saying that if it was postmarked before
You can't depend on
the
that.
day of the election before, but it comes in 3 or 4 days afterwards, it can't be counted even though it's already got a postmark date on it?
That's right. If they came in this week, we would not be able to consider that a qualified vote.
I just think it's ridiculous that something, though, that came in and does not have a postmark on it, that came in on time, that came in the mail, I'm just saying, that was delivered on Tuesday or Wednesday morning. That's Tuesday. People had their things in mail. Yeah, you should, but some of those, there should have been plenty of time for them to have put theirs in the mail and for it to have arrived within
Just think
a
something as
couple of
important
days.
as
This
the
is
ballot.
right.
What do you
This
think
is
happens to the rest of
disenfranchising
them
a lot of people.
Yeah,
I mean,
And
I'm
we
just.
have,
I've had that done.
and we have, how many drop boxes? 2?
We have 4 drop
Four
boxes
drop
in the
boxes.
county. And this year, we did encourage the voters to use the drop boxes more so than put their ballots in the mail.
It's just a shame that we can't count on the U.S. Postal Service to get people's.
And where are the
Ballots.
locations of those drop boxes?
We have drop boxes in the city of Basel, the city of Tonganoxie, the city of Lansing, and right here at the courthouse.
And those are all protected by camera?
They all have a camera on them that the camera is aimed. In fact, we have new security cameras on them that we put on last year that can actually see the face of the person putting the ballot in. They're very secure. They're checked on a daily basis by my office staff, and they're opened the day they opened October 16th. That was the day that we could mail the ballots out. They were open that day, and they were closed at 7 o'clock the night before the election. Now, the one here at the courthouse did remain open until 7 o'clock on Election Day.
So, just for people that are watching, is if you have a ballot in the last couple of weeks, it's much better to either bring it in personally to
Right.
the courthouse or put it in a drop box and not depend on the U.S. mail.
Well, I know, but it's just to me, it's just.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, especially if something came from the post office into our mail at the clerk's office
And it's stamped.
on Wednesday. But those that are stamped is even worse. But
That's what I think.
but when we have when we have a ballot that is not counted because of an error of the post office that did not, stamp it on, Tuesday night to put it in to come in. That's just, and then when you're talking about drop boxes, mails, plan accordingly, I don't know how many of these individuals are people that, hypothetically speaking, that receive the services of Meals on Wheels. They don't have the ability to get themselves to and from. They depend on the Postal Service to put their mail in the mailbox and for it to be delivered on time. And it's just outrageous to me.
Well, I'm going to start sending my Christmas cards this week.
I guess
Yeah,
it's just, I just,
You're late.
and that we have
I'll be late.
there's
I'll be
nothing
late.
that we as the
Apologize in
canvassers can do
advance.
about
My
this.
Christmas
That
cards
we
are right.
we have no.
And that's the thing. So, I mean, there's anything we can do about it. That's the way it is. So.
Does
Yep.
the postmaster, when you address this with the postmaster, as far as the ones that came in that weren't, stamped, what's the comments on that?
Well, in my opinion, the problem does not begin in Leavenworth. It begins in Kansas City. All the mail goes to Kansas City, and that's where it should be postmarked.
Okay.
How much time do you think you'll need, Janet, to count the ballot?
Well, I've got other things to go through as part of the canvas, but if you're in agreement with what I recommend qualified, I would appreciate a motion to accept the qualified provisional or the provisional ballots that I recommend qualified so that my staff can begin the process of counting those.
So I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the provision, is that it, or just to count the provisionals?
To accept
To accept the provisionals as recommended by the county clerk.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
The standards you've gone by are objective standards from the Secretary of State's office. You've not made this up, and we do not have discretion. This is the state, according to state statute, the standards we must follow.
That is correct. And as I said, I handed the audience the exact regulations that I do. And certainly you can.
It just seems such a shame.
I know, it is.
Thank you, Janet.
So it's pretty cut and dry.
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, begin voting with Commissioner Stephen.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Janet.
I would like to make a comment that if any of the public, it is a very transparent process, and if any of the public would like to see the provisionals open and bed through the DS 200, you're certainly able to go down to my office, the county clerk's office, on the first floor to view that process.
One more thing before we do that. Can you tell us about the audits and the requirements for audits and the audits you've done, and if the hand count has matched the machine count?
Yes, that was a point that I did want to make today, which I think is very, very important. For several years now, all the counties in Kansas have had a post-election audit. The county chooses the precincts, and the Secretary of State's office chooses the races. These races are not chosen until after the election. So no one knows ahead of time what race they will have to audit. This year, Wednesday at 5 o'clock, we were notified that Leavenworth County had to audit a precinct with the United States representative. We had to audit a precinct with the 9th district, the 9th State Senate district, and also we had to audit the 2nd District County Commission race. In addition to those races, because of the closeness of the race in the 5th Senate district, we were required to audit 5 additional precincts for the 5th Senate. We were 100% accurate in our audit. It is a board that comes in. It's not my office staff that handles the audit. It's an independent board. We send the results of the audit to the Secretary of State's office, and the audit must be approved prior to beginning the canvass with the Board of Canvassers.
Your audit, the hand count that was done, matched the machine results.
Absolutely.
And every time in all the elections that this has been required, that has been the case, that the hand count has matched the machine.
That's right. And not only does it include election day ballots, But it includes all the advance that the office did prior, during the period of time that we could have advance voting. So I think that's also important to note.
How many precincts total was it that you did?
We have 54 precincts.
But how many did you audit?
We audited 8.
8. So that's a fairly high percentage.
That was the requirement.
I feel our elections are safe
that
here
we
in the
had.
county.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to move on now that they're beginning the process of counting the provisionals. Leavenworth County has 56,529 registered voters. We had
Janet, can I clarify something? They're starting that.
They're down there doing it now.
Right
that's right.
Well,
So just if anybody want to go down and watch that, they're starting. They're not waiting for you to go down.
No,
Yeah, Mike, we voted.
that's the only reason I wanted to begin.
Yeah, I started keeping track.
So we need to-
I started keeping track.
Get out of the morning canvassing.
She's going to continue giving us
Oh,
I'm just going to continue
information.
with
Just
the
anybody that wants to
canvas.
leave and go observe can go do that now.
So we had 56,529 registered voters in Leavenworth County. 36,506 people voted in the election on the 5th. We had a 64.6% turnout. We had 17,776 people vote advance, and on election day we had 18,629 people vote. Then we had the additional ballots that we counted through the mail. So that comes up with our 36,506. As you can see with the numbers of the 17,000 and the 18,000, our advance nearly matched election day. So it's a very popular process, and each election it does grow in numbers as to the number of people that advance vote. We had a satellite site in Basel. We had a satellite site in Tonganoxie, and we also had a satellite site in Lansing to promote the advanced voting. Each one of our precincts were double-checked against the poll book and the number of ballots that were ran through the DS-200 compared to the electronic poll book and the paper poll book. And each one of those were an accurate number. Our election workers and our staff are required to make sure that every ballot is accounted for. So if we send out 1,000 ballots to a polling place on election day, it has to be verified that 1,000 ballots went out and 1,000 ballots are coming back in. Whether it's provisional ballots, unvoted ballots, the ballots ran through the DS-200 or spoiled ballots. So that's also a requirement through the county clerk's office. The other thing that we had as part of Election Day is we had candidates that filed a write-in candidacy. We had a write-in candidacy paperwork filed for the sheriff. Kent Lyons did file that. We had a write-in candidacy filed for the Register of Deeds. Jeff Coughlin filed that. We also had write-in candidates for High Prairie Township Treasurer and High Prairie Township Trustee. So, when these are filed in our office, we are required to go through each precinct and look at each one of the write-ins. So we did that through advance and through Election Day. And Kent Lyons received 4,331 write-ins countywide. Jeff Coughlin received 355 write-ins. Mr. Grenier received 497 write-ins just in High Prairie Township for the High Prairie trustee. And Mr. Ferris received 484 write-ins in High Prairie Township. Each one of these write-ins were not successful in winning the race, but there were a significant number of write-ins that had to be tallied by the office. We also had, no one had filed for Delaware Township treasurer. So we looked at each one of the write-ins in Delaware Township, and it was determined that an Andrew Allen received the most votes. I have not contacted him yet to see if he accepts the position of Delaware Township treasurer, but I will contact him. Does anyone have any questions about the canvass?
I don't.
Was the turnout, we were in the 60s, we didn't make it up to the 70% turnout.
No, I kind of thought we would get to 70% after I saw the number of people voting advanced, but we did not. In 2020, we did reach almost 73% turnout. But I think it is important to note with that 2020 election that it was nearly a mail ballot election. It was the year of the pandemic, and we had mailed out advanced ballot applications to all of our voters. And so I think that really kind of proves back that, you know, if everybody has the opportunity to vote by mail, it can increase the numbers.
Unless they don't.
Post office must have been a little better back then.
There you go. That's right. Of course, we had the ballot boxes then too. But
Janet, what year did you start with the county clerk's office?
well, I don't know. I've 19.
It's been a while.
About.
I started in the clerk's office around 1987.
So did you notice those earlier years there was a lot more voter turnout than there are lately these days?
Oh, not particularly.
It's always been.
Well, the last few years, I think it's gone up some, but you know what I've probably noticed more is the growth in voter registration numbers. And going back to say 2008, we were at 35,000 registered voters, and here we are, and we're at
56.
almost 57,000
close, yeah.
registered voters. So I probably have noticed that more so than the turnout. Everyone knows that when you have a presidential election, you can certainly anticipate the highest turnout that you're going to see every 4 years.
But you're saying back in the 80s we saw like a 17% voter turnout on non-presidential election?
We maybe didn't see a 70, but...
No, 17.
Oh, no. We saw, for presidential elections, we have been pretty consistent with 60 to 70% turnout.
All the way back to the 80s. Okay. That's what I was wondering.
I don't know if you were referencing, but in our local elections, we're getting these turnouts like 12%, 17%. I mean, very, very low turnouts. And you just wonder if maybe those local elections should be put in conjunction with like the governor's race or the presidential in order to get participation, because 12% of the people are not, that's not enough to be representative in my opinion.
Well, I'm just going to reference back to August of this year. We had a very, very important primary election with a lot of our local candidates on there. And what did we see? 12%, 13%. And that was in an August primary. So it was super sad. 7,000 or 8,000 people voting in August of this year. When you talk about putting city school, which is what we're going to have next year, I sometimes don't know that that's such a good idea because your ballot gets really full. And this year we had, a two-sided ballot because you have all the judges. And if you start adding more contests onto that, are people going to vote for one or two races and leave the rest of that blank? Also, those are nonpartisan races. And so that would be another reason why I would not recommend putting them on the gubernatorial or the presidential.
It's just when you think about the turnout being so low,
I agree.
Who's really is being represented when you have 12% of the people, So I don't know, whatever we can do to get the numbers up.
Well, I think that when the legislators moved the city school elections to November of the odd years, I think over the course of time we have seen a 3 or 4% greater turnout than when it was in the spring. Is that still enough to have? It's just really sad because there's not very many voices heard to elect our school board members or our city councils. But the word goes out the very same each election. The amount of work put into having an election is the same. We do the same testing. We do the same audits. But certainly we don't have the same turnout.
So you mentioned the judges. Do we canvass that? I mean, do we approve
That's all
that?
part of the canvas.
That's part of the canvas? And all them results? I mean, they're in different counties, so some of them are.
Judicial districts.
Judicial district, or first judicial district.
Yes, you have your Court of Appeals. That's the same statewide. But you have your district court judges that, with ours, it would be like Atchison and Leavenworth are in the first judicial district. But I think that's a good example of talking about the length of the ballot, because even today, on this last election, so many people will even skip voting for the judges, and possibly it is because they don't know them or know what their record is. But we do have a lot of voters that will leave that part of the ballot blank.
I suspect there's been a judge or two that has been non-retained at some point, but it's almost unheard of.
Yes, I've never seen that.
I haven't either.
and we say we have these retention elections, but it seems like it's a rubber stamp.
And it's kind of funny, some counties, have the retention. Some counties are elected. And so Leavenworth County, or the first judicial district, is retained, not elected. Wyandotte County, I do believe that those judges are elected. So it's just, I don't know how it was determined on that, whether The districts went in and voted for that originally. I mean, David might remember, but not that you're that old.
Senior county counselor.
It's unfortunate.
To be a source of mirth.
No, we need to have people educate themselves, though, on all of those, and that information is available. I
Right.
mean, you can research
a lot
the
easier
records,
than
and I think, is it the Bar Association? Somebody does David, on the judges, their records and all those things. You can get that information. It's available to make a determination, if you choose to, whether or not you want to vote to retain or not retain as any specific judge. There is information available out there to get that information, but there's also information. We just don't do a very good job of educating our vote, just in general, or voters don't do a good job of educating themselves.
I received several phone calls before the election. Who should we vote for the judges? Who should we vote for the judges? And there's not a lot of good. I mean, there's a couple organizations that make endorsements, but there's not a lot of good information.
But there is
Well, I mean, I don't think people access that, and it's good to know.
Since we're just kind of waiting, this year more than any other year, I've had voters call or email to verify that their vote was counted. And I have found that very interesting. And even when people were voting advance, they would come up and say, how do I know my vote was counted as I cast it? So I would explain the audit process, which they were very satisfied with. But the other thing, after the election, there's a link on our website along with the Secretary of State's website. It's called Voter View. And a voter can put their information in and see if they were given the voter credit that they had voted. But that does not happen. It will show mail, but it won't happen as far as if you voted advance, like here at the courthouse or on election day, until we close that election out. And I've heard it talked about on the news that people have been, wondering about that. So I thought, well, today might be a good point to make that if you do go on to Voter View to see if you have voting credit, that credit will not be posted until we close the election, which we do plan on, closing the election as soon as possible. I don't know. The other thing is if there is a contested race, whether it be, local or state, there is 5 days from when I issue the certificates in order to contest the election.
So I had a question, like if I file for a mail-in ballot, and then I go and I actually don't return that mail-in ballot, forget about it, or it's destroyed, or whatever, and then I go to the polling place and I come to you, you're going to have a record that I requested an early ballot. How is that handled?
Yes, and we did have several of those. So the scenario that Mike was talking about is, you request a ballot, you decide you want to go to the polling place and vote it, or vote in person, then that would be a provisional ballot. If that advance ballot was never voted, the original one that you requested, then your provisional ballot would count. That's how that works. Sometimes people forget that they've requested because they request really early on in the year for a ballot to be mailed to them. Or sometimes they don't even get that ballot in the mail. And so we always have allowances for that person that did request a ballot to be able to go to provisional and have that ballot counted.
Here's what bothers me. 27 states now don't require any form of ID to vote. Leavenworth County requires picture ID to vote. So how did those 27 states even know if the same person voted several times for different names or different precincts? Or it doesn't make any sense to me. And they're headed that way. More and more states every year go to no form of ID voting.
That's why you wait for what the election's over, then you do those late counts.
I don't understand that.
What about same day?
And I think Kansas is one of the last states that require picture ID.
Oh, no. I think we were really a leader of the pack. I think Kansas was.
No, I mean now. We're one of the last ones that require picture ID.
Oh,
I think there's only
I don't know
4
that.
that require picture
I don't
ID.
know.
But
Necessarily
it's going the wrong
about
direction.
that.
It's going the wrong way.
You know that, and, you know, that picture ID, your address doesn't have to match. You know, it can be like a military ID, as long as it's a government-issued ID. And I believe in the state of Kansas, at least Leavenworth County, they're very used to the process when they go in and vote.
Yeah.
They automatically take out their driver's license or
I
their
agree.
government issue ID
Yep.
and hand it to the election workers.
Yep.
While I'm sitting here, I really want to give a big appreciation to all of our election workers
Absolutely.
and all of the staff and extra people that we had work in the office this year. Took a tremendous team effort, and I would never want to say that I put on the election, because it's not an I. It is an entire team of people that work together to make sure that Leavenworth County has a successful election.
You know, Janet, I've been on 4 years now to come from the city of Lansing, and I've been very amazed by what has happened. And I know this is your last one.
Oh, no, she's going to have to come back and help.
Okay, well, this is your last as a head like that, and I've been impressed on how you handled that. So I'll get to tell you that again before you leave us, but I've been very impressed as an outsider coming in.
Well, thank you. I have really loved being the county clerk. It has really been truly an honor. And,
Well, we love you being the county clerk.
well, thank you.
That's a fact.
You guys will be in good hands, and
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, I'm excited to retire too.
Go
I
do
hear
a little
you.
traveling.
65 years old, and I feel like, this is the time.
Yeah. What are you going to do when you grow
We're
up?
going to be in Florida.
Wow, Vicki and I are going to be in Florida.
On the beach. I looked up Dr. Google. And he said, as of April 2024, 35 states require some form of ID at the polls.
Some.
Of those, 24 states mandate photo identification, while 11 allow non-photo IDs. The remaining 15 states do not require ID to vote in person on election day, and that's from Newsweek.
15 states
How
don't
many do
require.
same day?
I'd have to look that up, Vicki.
So you said some form of ID.
15.
Yeah, I better not go there.
It's the Costco card, Doug.
That's why I was heading that way. No, it didn't say picture ID. It said some form of ID. So whatever.
Commissioners, while we're waiting,
Make
is it
it
possible that
loud.
we could reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I can
and
do
knock out a couple of the items on the agenda.
Are you in a
I'll
hurry?
accept the motion.
Well,
We got a long agenda.
All right, I'm going to I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mark. I'm going to go ahead and go down, and when I come back up, we will have the official results
Good.
of the election.
Okay.
Okay, I do
Thank
have
you,
the
Dan.
answer to Vicky's question. 25 states and Washington, D.C. have same-day voter registration.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn as the Board of County Canvassers and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Begin voting. Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
We are now back to Board of Commissioners. Next up on the agenda was public comment. I don't have anybody signed up for public comment. Do we have any commissioners have anything?
I just want to thank whoever put this in my box, and one of our local representatives, what he had mailed out. It says, counties push false narratives and demand for LAVTR tax subsidy. He says it's a theory behind the LAVTR. It's not a theory. It was a state statute till they changed the law. All this information is false that was put out. Now, I don't know if any of you looked at this.
I got a
This
copy
is
of
not true.
Yeah, there's almost
And
nothing
that was
on there
mailed
that's
out to the
accurate.
constituents.
Very disappointing.
It's
Yeah.
very disappointing.
And
That's
hopefully-
how you get elected.
And that's the problem is people won't do their homework to fact check anything on that mailer
There's
when
nothing on there
99%
that's-
of it is
well, that
false.
last paragraph's true, that they did in the session. The rest of it is false.
And that's the problem.
Yeah, I saw it.
People get that and they think, oh, that must be the way it is.
Do you guys agree with this?
Not absolutely.
Have you read this and you agree with this?
Yeah,
That is false.
absolutely nothing.
And it's and the thing is that it's a total lack of character and ethics and everything else, and then that's the person that we have
Elected to represent us and make
represent us
laws.
and make laws in Topeka
And
when
the
they
bad
can't even
thing
tell
about
the
it is-
truth.
That's the problem. And then people
What
look
else
at
would
that,
the county
And they-
use it for?
Scream transparency.
and people look at that and they say, oh, they're quoting a survey from the Kansas Policy Institute. It must be true. If anybody did their homework, they would understand who the Kansas Policy Institute is. There's a big red flag. And the report that it put out says the last 7 years they paid the LAVTR, the counties and cities still raised the taxes. They forgot to mention that that's when they pulled off the business machines, so we had to make up for that. They also forgot to mention that those particular years was when the real estate market went crazy.
That's right.
So the valuations went through the roof. So if anybody would just do their homework and fact check any of that, they would see that
But
it's
Jeff,
almost all
you got
completely
to see when
false.
things like that get sent out in mailers, it means we're getting people's attention. And I think the last couple of years, this county has sent out factual sheets. We're getting ready to
And I
send
think
them.
that's exactly right.
And I think by
Put a
making
copy of
people
this with it.
make people ask questions, and I think they're asking the legislators questions now, which
Yeah.
we didn't see years
But if the
ago.
legislators aren't telling them the truth when they ask the questions, what good does it do?
Here's what I hope out of all this. At least they'll see that they're getting one kind of information from the state legislators, and they're getting a different kind of information from the county commissioners. And I'm hoping they'll do their homework,
Yeah.
and then that'll make them understand exactly who's telling the truth and who's not.
I probably had more calls this year and on that, asking me to explain it in detail, and people coming up to the county courthouse, which of course I would gladly show them the facts on that. You know, this happened when I was the city administrator in Lansing too, and many years ago. So this has been going on. I think the thing that bothers me is the whole time is that it's a state statute, and in this thing right here it says we're not following, or it looks like we're not following state statute, or we won't follow what we know we'll do. We do follow what the laws are.
We're required.
And everybody else is too,
They're not.
Doug. And that's what the catch is.
So the sad thing is for the constituents is had we capped property taxes, which we asked them would have been 4%, and then had we received the $4 million from
There would
LAVTR,
have
we
been
could have
huge,
lowered your mill
huge.
levy by 4 mills.
And the biggest part that I don't understand is we're supposed to be a team. The government's supposed to be set up where the lowest form of government, the most common form of government, has the most power.
That's what our
is
founding fathers had intended.
right, closest to the people. So the cities and counties have reached out, being closest to the people, and told our state legislators what the problems are and how to fix them. And instead of helping us fix them, they've turned us into a blame game and a war. I don't understand that. We're supposed to be on the same team. And we've turned this into some kind of a war between the state and the cities and the counties. When all we're doing is reaching out to them and saying, here's a problem, here's how you can fix it, help us fix it. And instead they say, oh, no, you guys are making that up, and you're the problem.
But it's a concerted effort that they have made. It is a planned effort that they have made to try
I
to
do not understand
to discredit local governing bodies.
When you can't stand on your own accomplishments, you have to cast shadows on others. And they can't stand on their own accomplishments. They've done nothing to alleviate property taxes.
If you can pass sports betting and gaming and star bonds for sports
Overnight.
games overnight in 24
In a special
hours,
session that
but you
you've
can't
called.
pass any legislation to help
taxes.
property taxes in 6 years, I'm hoping the people will see what's going on.
Well, they're going to have to.
I think there's more questions being
But
asked.
the election didn't really show that.
So Commissioner Culberson, just for information, we did pass a resolution, and I believe you wrote it, that if we received money for LAVTR, it would all go to property tax relief.
100%.
100%.
And
Which
that's
we
also
wouldn't.
what the statute requires.
And I was going to
Yes,
say, the
I mean-
statute already
So-
required
Yeah, we
that.
promised to
didn't
follow
have
the
to
law.
do that, but we did.
Yeah,
do that.
not what it was.
so one of the
have-
items on that mailer says
So
we
this
can't
item's
even.
not correct.
Yeah, it says we can't even be sure that their county would use the money for LABTR. It's in the law itself. Plus, Leavenworth County passed a resolution again saying.
And they make it sound like the local government's going to, we're going to, I believe there was some leadership person that said that there was going to be a slush fund for the counties and the cities.
All we can do,
That
Mike,
couldn't be further from the truth.
folks,
And it says in there.
we've beat this up, but all we,
Yeah, I know.
all we,
I'm
all we
just
can
sorry,
do.
but
Well,
that's the first
you
time I've
agree.
seen it.
I agree, but all we can do is keep bringing it forward to the people.
You're right.
And over time, it starts more and more. This year,
That's
there was a
right.
lot more questions, so we just need to keep going forward with it.
So that is good public
You get a
comment. We're hoping the
billboard, put that
public
up
will
there
do
with
their
the
homework
thing,
on it.
just the big lie.
Anything else for public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to administrative business. Mr. Lothar, do you have anything for us this morning? Anybody else have anything for administrative business?
I don't.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, begin voting with Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda is approved.
Excuse me.
Formal board action, general, we'll let her do that. We're going to wait for Janet to come back for the general election, so we'll move on to
Just I
consider.
wanted to point out one thing before you rush by it. The couple grants that have been,
Oh, that's on the
the
consent
grant
agenda.
requests that we are giving letters of support for Riverside Resources and then the Guidance Center. That these are very important when we, this helps them get their funding.
Yep.
And we probably need to do a better job of that, just like this. That gets kind of glazed over in the consent agenda, and people don't really realize how much free grant money the county applies for, and our employees work really hard to get. People always ask me all the time, how come you guys don't apply for grants? I'm like, what are you talking about? We apply for grants every day, and are awarded grants every day, but we don't really advertise that. So, good point.
These are some really important ones here.
Yeah,
Good point.
you're right, Mike.
So we'll move on to consider a motion to authorize Building and Grounds Director to sign tax credit documents for the courthouse.
Morning.
Aaron.
Good morning, Commissioners. What you guys have before you today is the first of our tax credit rehabilitation certificate application. As part of our three-phase work to the courthouse and our agreement with Trainer, they will be preparing and submitting all of our tax credit documentation. A representative of the county has to sign that. Since on all of our bid documents, I am the owner rep, which means the county's rep, they have prepared the documents with my name on it as signature. I'm moving before you today to ask permission to sign this tax credit application as well as other tax credit applications that come in so that the county can expedite that process as quickly as possible.
Understood.
Make a motion to authorize Building and Grounds Director to sign tax credit documents for the courthouse.
Second.
Motion and a second. And further discussion?
On the estimated project cost, did that jump up?
That is their estimated project cost. We have not received our bids back yet, but most of the times, architectural and engineering services tend to be higher.
Didn't we think it was going to be a lot lower than this?
We are hopeful that it is significantly lower than that. Yes, sir.
Okay, because I'd seen that number and I thought,
I
where'd
think
that
that's
come
pretty
from?
close.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, begin voting with Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
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 Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Proceed.
Thank you, Aaron.
Next, consider a motion to approve Board Order 2024-9, granting a disaster relief tax abatement for buildings on 17953 157th Street, substantially destroyed by fire. Morning, Bob.
Morning.
Bob.
I had one more of these get out so we get tax statements corrected. This one is ask for approval of Board Order 2024-9. This property at 17953 157th Street met the criteria for being substantially destroyed by fire. The date of the disaster was May 19th, 2024, which makes it available for a tax abatement for the 2024 tax year.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve Board Order 2024-9, granting disaster relief tax abatement for buildings on 17953 157th Street, Basehor, Kansas, substantially destroyed by fire.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, begin voting with Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thanks,
Thank you,
Bob.
Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Next, consider a motion to accept the proposal and authorize Public Works to enter into a 3-year contract with Olson Associates for an on-call county engineering service with an option for a 2-year extension.
Commissioners, today for your consideration is that is the contract and the acceptance of the proposal from Olson and Associates for the on-call engineering services. Public Works met with 6 different engineering firms regarding the request for proposals that were advertised for these services. Despite the interest in the contract, we did not receive any other proposals. They had to declare their conflicts of interest, and almost every engineering firm is actively working in the county currently that would be eligible to make a proposal on this that showed interest. And so they did not want to declare or withdraw from that private sector work. And Olson and Associates currently, and because they've been holding this contract previously, does not have any private work that's ongoing in Leavenworth County. The selection committee did meet on November 6th and recommended acceptance of the proposal. The pricing of this that was included in this proposal was the same pricing that we're currently paying for these services, and they are somewhat capped based upon the planning and zoning policy that requires the applicant to reimburse review costs over a certain threshold. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So what do we average a year with this company?
Well, over the past year, I don't have the numbers directly in front of me, but I believe this past year, I would say approximately $90,000 in services. Of those, some of that would have been reimbursed, but we did spend that money out, and then reimbursements would have come for portions of that.
So we're running about, say, $100,000 a year.
Approximately, yes. If you look at the 5-year average, it might be a little bit higher. If you look at like 5 years ago and through some of the different larger zoning applications, that number may have been probably double that, I believe, some years.
That's less than
180,000.
additional staff.
Yep.
Right. No, I know we couldn't hire somebody.
So is there any, has there been any material changes to this contract compared to the last contract? Is it, or pretty much the same contract that they signed before?
Well, it's a different contract.
I know, but is there
I mean,
any
it's a different-
specific things that have changed?
I mean, I'd let
The scope.
the county counselor answer that question.
Yeah.
She prepared this new contract, so substantially no.
Morning, Mr.
I just wonder if there's any major material changes to the contract.
The bulk of the contract, the work being done is the same. We did include mandatory contractual provisions that David and I drafted for all county contracts, which includes termination for convenience clauses, cash basis termination, and just clauses that better protect the county.
Thank you.
And that was going to be part of my question to legal was with our contractual agreement that doesn't violate any laws or county ordinances doing a 3-year with a 2-year extension time frame.
Not if you include the Kansas cash basis provision, which we did. And then in addition to that, we included a termination for convenience clause where it's just at the county's convenience. If another body decides that they want to take it out for bid, you notice it up and let them know you're going to terminate it, and then you can rebid it.
Okay. I just want to make sure we didn't step on any sign die process.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Should we put this off till the 2 new commissioners get here? Would that be possible? I mean, we got a drop dead date. We got to do this job.
Is that necessary?
It's our job to make decisions.
I don't think it would be
now.
necessary because of the clause that allows us to terminate at any point.
If it was more contentious, then I would kind of agree with you. But since we
With the
only have
2-year
one,
extension, that's fine. That's going to take them even past their term.
right?
But we
that's what
have
I'm
to-
saying.
They could cancel
Clause.
it at any time. So I think with that clause, it allows it.
Yeah. Plus,
Yeah.
we only got one.
I'm fine with it.
So
I
you
mean,
said that
the outcome would probably
the
be the
average.
same.
I know.
That's all I'm saying. If I thought the outcome might be different, then I would tend to agree. Go ahead, Mike.
So you said that over 5 years, the average has changed, but hovered around 100,000. But we have changed for large projects when they make a proposal that now they're paying for their work. Does that help to offset some of those costs?
Yeah, that helps regulate some of the costs, but we also have had a record number of subdivision reviews over the past year. I believe at one point we had 27 subdivisions that were
They're up.
being
Yeah.
reviewed, and so just dependent upon the caseloads in planning and zoning that gets reviewed by the Public Works Department, it would dictate the number of billable hours that would be seen on a monthly basis. But overall, the numbers have trended down, but it's completely dependent upon what applications are received through planning and zoning that we do need to do reviews for.
Those are good things, though.
So is the turnaround okay on this, or not getting anybody pushed off of the planning commission because they didn't get this reviewed in time?
No, we haven't had any issues. We've been pretty stringent upon a 10-day review cycle. That we have to return comments to any applicant within a 10 working day period. I don't believe, maybe once or twice, if it's an unusual circumstance and like staff or some of their staff was off work, we may have missed it by a day once or twice in the last 6 months. But through all the planning and zoning applications, it's been very consistently within that 10-day period.
Any other questions or
Okay with it.
information? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept the proposal and authorize Public Works to enter into a 3-year contract with Olson Associates for on-call county engineering service with an option for a 2-year extension.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, I think overall, this has really benefited
Yeah, it
your
has, Mike.
office and our ability to obtain engineering services.
Right.
Would you see it
I
that
agree.
way?
Yeah, it is. For the cost of one internal staff member, we have
Yeah.
access to
Yep.
pavement engineers,
Entire
traffic
cadre.
engineers.
Yep.
I know that they help the IT department get the fiber optic over to Cushing through some of their other fiber optic engineering folks. They have all sorts of different resources for us that we can access through this contract that really provide us a wide range of services. And we have managed the cost, and it really hasn't exceeded the cost of a full-time single civil engineer in the last several years.
And you can access engineering services or engineers that have specialties in different areas.
Yeah, traffic engineers, pavement engineers, architects, you name it, environmental engineers. They have nationwide. This is they have different offices in different locations, but they have staff that they can reference out to if they need to for any application.
And I can say over the last 40 years, seeing how the county has dealt with engineering issues, this is definitely the best situation when it comes to efficiency and cost and accuracy. So I can tell you that much.
Seems like it's been working well.
I think so.
So I have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Begin voting with Commissioner Stephen.
Aye.
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 No.
Motion carries 4-1. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Next, consider motion to approve change order for base stabilization for bridge project HP 29.
Commissioners, this is the same request that you had previously heard on the ARPA Culverts project. The design engineer omitted from the plans or failed to incorporate the geotechnical engineer's report information into the bid tab, and therefore the bid item of base stabilization rock was omitted. So this is not a change in the scope of the services. This was an omission of a required material for a compaction effort. And so we've had good success in completing the work on all of these projects. This request is preemptive in nature, as they haven't done the work yet. They've given us the cost that it would cost, but I don't want to have them shut down if they do end up having to do a 2 foot of thickness. The 1 foot of thickness they have proposed the cost of $6,835 is well within our contingency. If they do end up going to a 2 foot compacted thickness in order to get the nuclear density testing to pass, it would be $29,616. We do have a 3% contingency on this project, I believe, but that does exceed our existing contingency by approximately $6,000. And so we would need approval from the Board of County Commissioners. I've requested 8 just because I don't want to come back before you for a $1,500 request. If they were,
Nor do we want you to come back before us.
I don't want to come back for any change order request personally, but
well, this was left out of
this was
left out of the bid. I mean, and it needs to be in there.
Yeah.
It has to be.
It's required. We have to have it.
We got to have it. So.
I agree.
And they will be working on it. They depend upon weather. They were out there working earlier this week, and they are ahead of schedule. So I don't want to slow them down.
Right.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the change order for base stabilization for bridge HP 29.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, beginning voting with Commissioner Stephen.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Thank you.
carries. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Next, consider a motion to approve amendments as presented to the sick leave buyback, and shared leave policies effective January 1, 2025.
Oh, he's got his hand.
Goes to Mr. Lothering.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I was just waiting, sorry. Commissioners, this is the similar policy that we've been discussing since July, I believe. We did bring this 2 weeks ago. The board asked to have it tabled. Just to reiterate a little bit, this is a change to the current policy. It puts a cap on the amount of sick leave that an employee can sell back. And unfortunately, there's a need for this policy because of the potential cost to the county and the escalation of the cost of other services or other benefits that we provide. Currently, without this policy change, there's approximately a $4 million unfunded liability to the county. With the change, it lowers it down to just under $2 million, but it spreads it out over several years, and it caps it so it won't get worse. I think that's the primary concern here. And I think it's kind of a middle point. So they're not losing everything, and this impacts around 14 employees versus the 400 employees that we have overall. And of that, there are some of these people who could utilize the policy as it's written and as it's proposed. There's an annual buy-back, sell-back period that nobody takes advantage of, and if they would, they could slowly get that amount down. So depending on how long these employees are going to stay with the county, it's potential that spreading it out over time, they would see very little or no impact for the change in this policy. But it's something, again, that we've been discussing since July, and I'd like the commission to consider it. I don't think doing nothing is not an option at this point.
So for the public's sake, can you walk us through what the changes are?
In the packet you have, I highlighted the areas that were changed. It used to be that there was no limit to the amount of sick leave that an employee could buy back or sell back, and this puts it at a cap of 1,000 hours. It also puts it at a cap of 1,000 hours that employees can accrue for sick leave. Nobody will lose the sick leave that they've already accrued. They just won't accrue any amount over 1,000 hours. If they drop back under 1,000 hours, they'll begin to accrue again. It changed in the separation where the amount that they could sell back, it limits it at 1,000 hours. It limits if you retire, it limits the amount that you can utilize at that time to 1,000 hours. And it clarifies some of the policies that we've talked about before, such as if an employee retires and their spouse had previously retired from the county, can they use this to pay for their spouses, even if they may no longer have to be on the policy because they're Medicare eligible, and the employee, when they left, were all eligible and on the plan. So we just clarified that. The county commission had already discussed that they wanted that. The shared leave program, we just clarified a couple of items on there as far as limits as to how often and when somebody can use the shared leave policy.
But Mark, if somebody wanted to use this would go in effect if it's approved on the 1st of January. So if somebody's in the timetable right now and they chose to leave now and retire, they're still eligible for the old plan.
Anybody who is currently an employee and would be eligible for the policy as it stands today, that goes through the end of the year so that they could utilize it through the end.
That's what I was trying to get across to. Okay, thank you.
So I just wanted to put it out there, like I wear the hat. I work for the railroad separately, and we have sick leave. Mm-hmm. So we have 5 sick leave days, and you must use them within the year, and that's the rule. They don't accrue. There's no selling back. If you don't use them, you lose them. So that's just one company. This can be done in a lot of different ways, but I think as far as clawing back a little on it, it's probably necessary.
We also
railroad salary, county employee salary. Is there a little difference in that?
I'm just giving you an example.
I'm giving you an example also.
But I'm sure there's a lot of companies that do it different ways.
And, I thought this was originally set up for retirees, but then it says if somebody gives her 2 weeks' notice, they're going to get some paid sick leave.
That's the current policy, Commissioner.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, just saying, why do we
change.
care if you're giving your 2 weeks' notice going somewhere else, you get paid for your sick leave? That's my opinion. And is there any way that these departments could absorb this individually?
No, there are some of these employees currently that if they exercise this buyback, would be it'd be in excess of $60,000 for one employee.
Well, it just seems like, how do we go from saving money a few years ago to catastrophic failure?
Well, I think
this program was first implemented, it wasn't costing the county anything.
I think one of the things that we have to consider, though, is that the other benefits that we're absorbing the cost of at present time, though. I mean,
that's all we got. Those offers,
right?
benefits.
But I'm saying that we're also, but we're not. What is it? $100 a month that.
To offset like a program like this, the increase to the premium for the health insurance would be significant to the employees, depending upon family or individual. And there's always been a cost to this, Commissioner. 2 years ago when it was implemented, the hope was that there would be an offsetting savings because employees would leave. When they retire, you're going to hire somebody in at a lower amount. The reality is that this really hasn't, the policy currently has not encouraged any employees to retire early and then recognize that savings. The other thing to keep in mind is this impacts fewer than 5% of our total employment. We're talking about really 14 employees that would have enough hours that, depending on when they plan to retire, if it's in the next 3 years, they wouldn't be able to get back underneath this 1,000-hour rate using the policy. If they're 1,400 hours or less in accrual, within 4 years they could be back underneath the 1,000 hours and wouldn't lose anything. So it's really just those 14 who are borderline, and if they're more than 6 or 7 years out from retirement, they can get back underneath it too. So it brings it really to like 5 employees who probably have no opportunity to really, maybe 8, that really have no opportunity to get underneath that 1,000
Okay,
hours.
I struggle then. I've struggled with this whole, but then these individuals, though, ostensibly, right now, could do a buyback of all that they have in excess,
If they were leaving employment with the county.
but they can't, if, just to say at the end of this year, I want to,
No. And there is, we do have an annual, in the policy as it stands today, and it would keep on, there's an opportunity to sell back like 100 hours a year, and very few, if any, people take advantage of that, which that's been in place since the beginning. So some of these people who have these large accruals could have utilized this over time to slowly bring that down. And they still get take advantage of the buyback.
but we can't increase the accrual, of the buyback accrual for just, I just
There-
grandfather people to be able to do that and then to continue moving forward.
There is
I
no
just-
savings if you do that. So
Okay.
that, and that's the thing. I would prefer not to make any change to this policy, but what I'm saying is there has to be a change somewhere because the cost is more than the county
Right.
continue to.
Okay.
We got elected officials that their budgets are doing that, and we're still approving them. You know, we can't sustain them. They're not sustainable.
What is the, over the past 3 years, and you may not know all the numbers, but on our health insurance premiums for the county, can you tell folks what the trend has been with that?
Well, from a percentage standpoint, that our utilization is over 20% over what our premiums are, which means you have an increase. So we've worked with our provider really pretty well over the last 3 years to try to mitigate that as much as we can. But I think this year, the overall cost of the increase was $1 million, give or take, an increase to the county. Last year, I think we were 14% increase. I think the year before that, we were just below 10%. And then the year before that, we had locked in our increase. Otherwise, it would have went up. So what I told you back in July was I would monitor our utilization to see if maybe our trends would go down. And they have not. We're still over 20% overutilizing our plan, which means
that's
we're
gonna
in
go
for
up
another
next-
big increase.
Yeah, a big increase
next
you're going to
year.
get in the
And
next.
next month, you're going to get a request to amend the employee benefit budget because the rate that went up, the 20% that we had this year, is going to increase that employee benefits for 2024 in an amount more than we have budgeted for. So you're going to have to amend the budget for that in 2024. And we had to last year, too, if you remember, at the end of the year in 2023, we had to amend that. And it's because these premiums are going up at a rate higher than what we've anticipated. And it's, I want to say it's not just our employee utilization, it's the inflation in the system. So inflation for medical care and pharmaceuticals specifically is what really drives this. We have prescriptions that are $300,000 a year for one prescription for one covered member.
Yeah.
So
It's outrageous.
the increase that we see is in the pharmaceutical side. And it's not because people are taking more drugs. It's because the drugs that they are taking now cost so much more than they did before.
But I was here when they had a cap on sick leave, what you could earn. It was 120 days. And, of course, once you hit 120 days, people started using, they were gone, used their sick leave up. And then they got to requiring doctor's notes. So then our health insurance usage went up because people were using their sick leave instead of just banking it.
Yeah.
Because
But you don't want
employees that use it every day,
But you
or
also
use
don't
it
want
as soon as
employees
they get
coming to
it,
work
they
sick.
get 100% of it.
Yeah. It's a
And
balancing.
usually the same hourly wage as the person who banks it.
Is there any talk about the maximum hours going up?
Maximum hours of
1,000 sick leave.
Well, it's right now there is no cap, and putting a cap at 1,000 is really that's the threshold. I'm not sure that that's still sustainable, but it's at least it was kind of a compromise amount, and it leaves it so that most employees will not be impacted by this change. If you increase that number, you really are going to start losing the savings that you have by implementing this policy. And Commissioner, to your point about the sick leave, the utilization of sick leave, that is a concern. We have discussed using a PTO system, which then you just have one leave instead of a sick leave and a vacation, and that way your good employees get to take advantage of it, just like the employees who abuse the sick leave. I've brought that up a couple of times, and we would like to see at least half of the departments as far as employment-wise, so at least the departments that represent at least half of the employees buy into that, and so far we haven't had that buy-in. Now, at some point in time, could we force it? Absolutely, but I would prefer that we get buy-in at the staff level before we start that. So,
well, I just look at this as a benefit, and that's all we got to offer, because our hourly wages are not competitive with private. So we're nothing but a training ground in a lot of departments right now.
So what's unfortunate is I've seen over the years, past commissions have always balanced the high taxes for the public, property taxes usually, on the backs of the county employees. They said, well, everybody's property taxes are really high, so let's cut the county employees'
I don't see that
pay
going away.
benefits.
So the thing is that,
And that's the problem.
obviously something has to give, and we have.
If we don't do something like this, like a reasonable cap, then it's likely down the road that the entire sick leave could be drastically curtailed. So I would say that this is a reasonable step that only impacts a small number of employees, and yet you're being fiscally responsible and you're bringing it under control.
But where I was going with that, Mike, is I've seen that happen. I've seen the pay go down, the pay go down. And pretty soon, you're hiring anybody, and anybody who is breathing, you'll hire them. And I understand people are going to say, yeah, our taxes are too high, so you do need to look out for our high taxes, and you do need to lower employee salaries if that's what it takes. Well, the problem is then you start hiring kids who will scrape off $1 million worth of chip and seal because they're not knowing what they're doing. Trying to keep good employees that know what they're doing is what this is all about.
Well, I'm not talking about salaries. I'm talking about the sick leave.
Well,
I know, but I'm talking about benefits.
We don't have
I'm talking about benefits.
But uncapped sick leave.
We are unsustainable.
Yeah, I know. I'm just wondering about
So what I'm getting at is it costs the taxpayers more by hiring just anybody and everybody in these jobs. You've got to keep good people. You've got to reward good people.
I'm not for hiring anybody and everybody.
But that's what
We're not
when you cut benefits,
But
and
you have to have
that's
a balance.
what you're doing.
You have to have a balance. You have to make sure if this program is going to potentially cost the county $4 million, and we have a compromise which will allow us to keep the program, but bring it under control with a cap, that's a reasonable thing to do.
How much does chip and seal cost in a season?
But
They got scraped off because the kid didn't know what he was doing.
But that's not the alternative.
if
That
we have-
is the alternative.
That's a red herring argument.
That's your opinion versus
It
my
is.
opinion. That's all right.
Or, like I said, I think, could the departments absorb it in their budgets?
But I think that
Haul a few loads less of rock.
as a general rule,
Don't buy so many new vehicles.
Yeah, get it.
1,000 hours.
That's my point.
to
Get it
maintain
somewhere
is a
else.
lot. But
Yeah,
the
I
people
know.
that have exceeded that are being, what I'm more concerned about, the people that have exceeded it, that it's a penalty for them. Is there a way, and I don't know if there's a way that you can try to do a grandfather type thing, but then even look at what percentage capped at 1,000 hours that this employee is going to lose instead of if they're have already had in their sick leave bank, let's say, I don't know what it is, but more than that? Can we do an incremental thing that says, but because you are here, we're going to say you can buy back X number upon retirement instead of.
Well, I just hate changing the rules when people came here and this is what the policy was when they came to work here, and now we're changing it. I mean, if you're going to do something, new hires or something.
I don't know where you're going to go to get 1,000 hours of sick leave that you can get bought under any circumstances that beyond retirement. That you say I quit, so I get my 1,000 hours too. I don't know of very many. I know that
if it goes toward health insurance premiums, if you retire early before you're on Medicare,
right in private,
But almost no one offers that.
And that's kind of my point. That's a benefit that we offer that a lot of places don't, because we don't pay very good.
But even at 1,000 hours, it's a good benefit, and
It is a good benefit, and we need to keep it.
By taking this action, we're preserving it, we're keeping it. But if you don't, and we keep going the other direction, it could actually all go away.
I get it, and I appreciate all Mark's work on this, and he's in an impossible situation. I understand what I'm saying. I'm saying, don't do it here, get it somewhere else, and everybody says that, and I keep saying, there is nowhere else to get it. So I get it.
So
I get
Mike,
it.
do you think there's maybe some elected officials' department budgets have went up more than enough to cover this cost?
Well, you know my answer to that. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And we keep saying, this isn't sustainable. We can't keep doing this every year. But it keeps happening every year. But boy, we come up to something with employees that's not sustainable. We got to do something.
That's my point. It's always the lowest hanging fruit.
I don't support this one bit.
I don't either.
Well, okay, I'm just going to make the motion to see if we.
I just need to.
where we're at.
But before we get I'm not. I'm just. We can.
I
keep
make a
discussing.
motion that we approve the amendment as presented to the sick leave buyback and shared leave policies effective January 1, 2025.
I'll second to get it going.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I still want to know if there's any other, because I from the get-go have struggled with making a decision on this, whether to be in the spoiler or not. I mean, it's like I just try to figure out the people who are actually in situations where it was more difficult for them to even take their sick leave, because of the job, the department that they happen to belong to or whatever. But I'm just struggling with some of that, but just with that small group of people, just that very small, limited number of people, to kind of try to make things right for that group of people. But I think that 1,000 hours that's reasonable for people to have as a benefit, because they're not going to be, and rarely anywhere are they going to be able to walk away with 1,000 hours.
And if
of
your
sick
pay
leave.
was reasonable, I would agree with you 100%. But their pay is not reasonable. So that's my part of that.
But that.
Cheaper to get benefits than it is pay.
But we have benefits that are going up and going up, and we're continuing to provide those benefits.
If it would make the pressure any less, I'll make a motion to table this if this one dies.
So
have a
I
motion.
think if you had a specific proposal, I would be more than open to looking at that. But for right now,
Let's get this off the table and see where we're going.
let's see.
Yeah, we have a
All
motion
right.
and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Stephen.
Aye.
I'm just really not. No.
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 But I'd like to make a motion to approve amendments as presented to the sick leave, with the sick leave being maxed out at 1,250 hours.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Okay, so you amended the.
The hours, Mike.
Okay, and fiscally, Mark, what's that going to?
Commissioner, I'm not prepared to give you that answer because I don't know without looking at where we are currently with all of our employees. I can tell you that would impact, that probably makes a difference for 5 or 6 employees, but really without looking at the chart, I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly.
Can we
I
have
just
him
would like
figure
to-
that and bring it back next week?
Well, let's call the vote.
I would just like
Let's
to
get the
look-
vote and see what happens.
All right, so 1,250. I would like to know the fiscal impact of that, but okay, go ahead.
So I have a motion and a second. Begin voting with you.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
No.
No.
Okay.
That fails. I would
wanna
like to
try
make a
to
motion
figure out how to-
I'd like to make a motion to table this until we
Just with
work on
the
it.
very narrow, because I still think we need we've got to do something. We absolutely have to do something
I get it.
on the sick leave and having people coming to work thinking that they're going to be able to walk away with $60,000 that's not reasonable. That's just not
Commissioners,
reasonable.
I'll tell you, I think I have put together the policies that I was asked to look at. I've made some changes to it and presented those to you. I don't have any other suggestions. There are no amendments that I can think of to make that.
But Vicki,
So if you have ideas, I would accept those. But as far as the policy as presented, I think what we have in place stays in place because you voted this down today. And I don't have any new ideas, I guess, what I'm saying.
but
So-
what you just
so
said,
we're
Vicki,
upside
you
down.
told somebody that you think that's unreasonable or more than $60,000 or whatever it was up to. But my point is, you told somebody that they could have that when you hired them, and then while you're still working for them, you took it away from them.
Or you use it
But,
one day a month.
This happens all
there's
the
a lot of
time.
time.
That
Yeah, but
happens all
that's
the
not
time.
uncommon.
That makes it right?
That's what I'm saying. That does happen. That's
makes it
just,
okay?
Costs in a business change.
Right. I'm
And that
just
makes it
trying to
okay?
figure out
Man,
what.
When I heard out on the
Should've
railroad,
passed this.
we didn't pay any insurance premium at all, and we didn't pay any copay at all.
I don't think you
And
want to
that
start
has
comparing
changed.
railroad.
I
don't think you
No,
want to
but
start
that's
comparing
an
railroad
example of
jobs
the
to
benefits
county
have
jobs.
changed.
You know, when
They
I
Bring
changed
it
the
back
benefits.
again.
when I
Yeah.
started working,
Okay.
Well,
you
We
paid
bring
nothing
it to a
for
vote
So-
again.
And
We don't have anything
I'm
that
gonna
we
bring
can-
I'm gonna bring this back up. Am I allowed to bring this up to a vote again?
So I just
Why don't
made a
you
motion.
Let me.
Year.
No, we need to get this done.
Right.
We got numbers here. I again bring the motion back
Well,
to.
hold on a minute, Mike. I
Yep.
just made a motion.
What's your motion?
My motion was to table this.
To when?
A date certain, 2 weeks,
For what purpose?
to try to figure out what we want to do.
I mean, we're tabling this, but we don't have any idea what, I mean, unless Mark can come up with
That's
a
why
different-
He said he said he can't.
Can,
I get it.
I'm tapped out, so
I
I
get
will
it.
look for ideas from the commission.
So in those 2 weeks, maybe somebody can come up with an idea.
sounds good. I'll second your motion.
Motion and a second. Any
Table
further
for 2
discussion?
weeks.
Table it 2 weeks.
All right.
no.
No.
No. I make a motion to approve amendments as presented to sick leave policy with the amount being raised to 1,250 hours.
We already
We
did that.
did, let's go with the original one.
We can do it again, though, can't we? It can be brought up again.
I don't
Well,
think you
is there
can
any,
make the
is
same
there
motion.
any
There's nothing
policy
else we're
that-
gonna get on
I
this.
would just
I get
add, I mean, I would second the motion just for discussion, but Commissioner, if you have a proposal, I'm more than happy to hear what your
I
proposal
just have to
is.
sit down and look at it, though. I'm just saying, I think that, and I've expressed it to Mark as well, I'm just, there's a very small, narrow group of people that I'm more concerned about than, yes, but we have to bite the bullet at some point. But
That's
I
what I'm
think
trying to
that
do.
there are individuals who have really banked on, no pun intended, on having this as part of their retirement, and that they've been here with us long enough that there should be some consideration for those individuals who have, like 20 years with the county. And
So let's say there's six, Mr. Lawfrey said maybe six. So let's say we identified that there's 6 individuals like that. Would you be wanting to give them more hours as far as their allowance,
Make this
Yes.
only apply to new employees.
or make it
not only new, I mean,
or a certain year?
just those who have been with the county, maybe figure out an anniversary, like for 20 years or more.
Commissioners,
something
the
that's-
1,000-hour limit, you'd have to be here for at least roughly 10 years, nine point something, and take no sick leave before the 1,000 hours even kicks in.
Right.
So if you go to 1,250, that makes it definitely 10, maybe 11 years before it would even impact anybody. So you're not when you say we'll just make this apply to new employees, It already, the policy as it stands doesn't benefit the new employees. It only benefits the employees who have been here for a longer period of time.
Didn't we just get a report that said the average tenure around here is 7 years?
Yeah.
now?
7 years.
Yeah.
right.
So why are we even
So-
talking about it? It's not-
Because
That's an
there's,
average.
because there's a $4 million outstanding.
Well, they're not all going to
liability to-
retire the same day.
Yeah.
It's still $4 million.
Folks, I'm sitting very.
There's a
let me have a chance tonight.
$150,000 a year cost.
I'm very sensitive to the employees. I've been on both sides as a manager and a mayor and stuff like that. But with the way the economy is in times like this seems like still, I would never gone against getting rid of it. And that's why I said bring it up to the 1250. At least it's something there. Future county commissioners can discuss this again if the economy gets better, which I think it will now. But this is something that Mark has to have to look at, and the employees do need. I have seen some salaries gone up, not to where I'd like to see them, but I've seen EMS. Mark made a judgment to this board. But I think we have to have a number we can live with to balance the books.
Well, this should have been discussed during budget time, so maybe we wouldn't approve some of these elected officials' budgets if we'd have known we needed the money for this.
I think it did come up, though. There was some discussion about it
Well,
during
but
budget
We
time.
didn't talk about cutting it.
Well, what happens, let me just say it. What happens when the elected officials come up, some of the board members here, or in the past, let's go that way, said, well, that's their budget, they can do what they want. The county's responsibility is to set that budget, whether you're elected or not. If we should have looked at that and said, wait a second, we can't maintain this either, and let's go back
Well,
down.
I believe the exact
Right, for
words
this-
were during budget, this is not sustainable.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And
saying.
it gets approved.
But we-
But then when it comes to the employees, this is not
Then
sustainable, so let's cut
and
it.
then we approved it.
So
Yeah, I
I
was-
say to do nothing until next year's budget. And when these high budgets come in, that's where you cut it.
I've got a motion on the floor. I call for the vote, Chair.
Wait a minute. Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes, you seconded it.
For the 1250
Yeah.
again? We're going to run that.
Same motion as before.
My concern about it is that I think if I am open to whatever your proposal is, because I don't think we're going to move anywhere until we come up to a proposal of.
That's why I was voting.
You know.
That's why I was made the motion to table it.
But
So we
I
got
will say
time
this,
to
just if
figure
I
it
can
out.
make one comment, is you have an unsustainable $4 million program. You have, the county administrator has made a compromise, middle ground suggestion of capping it at 1,000 hours, which is a very generous benefit. But we risk voting this all down, and then we get next year, this could have to be completely curtailed a lot more. So
Or-
that's the risk you take.
Or in budget time, you
Or
figure it
budget time, you reel some of these out of control budgets in.
Been
And
trying,
we
that
talked
hasn't
about
worked
it,
very
and I
well.
don't know how many times, year after year,
Will you
oh,
amend
this
your
is not
motion to
sustainable. But
1,000?
then they increase and they
Will
get
you amend your
approved.
to
1250.
Most of our budgets are
1250 gives us something,
different.
Vicki.
So,
Well, we
and I
got.
think this would give the department heads a chance to cut their budgets.
We can
to
always look at it
fund
later.
this.
Motion on the floor. I call for the vote, Chair.
Discussion's ended. Motion on the floor is to raise it to 1250 instead of 1,000. How do you vote, Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Aye.
Nope.
No.
Motion passes 3-2. Next presentations. Oh, Janet's back.
I am back.
Let's
Once again, you'll
reconvene.
have to go into the board canvassers.
I'll entertain a
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, I move that we adjourn as a Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Board of County Canvassers.
Second.
Motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
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 We counted the provisionals. I was mistaken when I said 421. We had 416, which is on the report. We counted 416 provisional ballots, and it did move our percentage up to 65.31. The race that we did have a lot of spectators, well, not a lot, but several that did watch the process, which I was very glad because Leavenworth County really prides itself on being transparent to the voters and the public. The State Senate 5th District, Jeff Klemp picked up 148 provisional votes. Jeff Pittman picked up 119 provisional votes. Now the outcome of the official election results would be Jeff Klemp with 11,826, Jeff Pittman with 10,792.
Does that include the results from Wyandotte County?
No. So tomorrow, Thursday, Wyandotte County has their canvass. So at that time, there will be official results certified to the Secretary of State's office, and I'm sure it will be on their website. So I would just like a motion to certify the November 5th general election.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we consider or make a motion to certify the 2024 general election.
Second.
Motion and a second. Again, voting on Commissioner Stephen.
Aye.
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 All right. Well, thank you, guys. And
Thank you.
for all the years that you have supported me.
Well, thank you for
Thank
all
you
the
for
years
all
you're
the
going
work
to come
you've
back and
done.
do this.
Thank you, Janet.
Thanking you in advance.
Thanks, Janet. Vicki.
I'm going to have you guys initial.
I couldn't.
She's going to be on the beach.
Yep.
Not during not August or November.
Where do you want it?
Janet.
Alaska for a couple of weeks.
Janet,
Where?
That's awesome.
Janet, where do you want it?
Be a cold beach.
Any initials, right in there.
That might not be enough.
Thank you, ma'am.
We're thinking about going to Alaska next summer. We're thinking about going to Alaska next summer. Yeah.
Initial it.
Oh, initially.
Yeah.
I don't know my vacation set, but are you going to Denali? That'll be nice. That'll be awesome.
Okay, I will consider a motion to re-adjourn as.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn as the Board of County Canvasser and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Second.
Motion and a second. Commissioner Stephen.
Aye.
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 We are back to county commissioners.
Thank goodness.
Executive session.
Yeah, I think.
We ready?
Yep, let's do that.
Yeah, let's.
Mr. Chairman, I move that this board recess for a closed executive meeting for discussion of subjects involving the legal interests of the county and confidential matters related to the potential litigation as justified by KSA 754319B2 for consultation with legal counsel, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, and the board resume an open meeting at 11:25 in the meeting room of the board. Present in the executive meeting will be Commissioners Jeff Culverson, Vicki Cause, Mike Smith, Doug Smith, Mike Stevens, Senior County Counselor David Van Perrys, County Counselor Misty Brown, and County Administrator Mark Lawfrey.
Second.
Motion and a second. Commissioner Stephen.
Aye.
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 Aye. We are adjourned. Let the record show that the board has returned to regular session at 11:25. No action was taken. No decisions were made. The subject was limited to legal interest of the county.
We are back in session. Presentations and discussion items. Anybody have anything they want to share this week?
Mike starts.
Thought Louis did, but he's gone now. Go ahead, Mike. You got
Oh, I'm
anything?
just going to read, since it's Veterans Day, I was going to read a poem. This is, "O Captain, my Captain. O Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every wrack. The prize we sought is won. The port near, the bells I hear, and the people all exulting, while follow eyes and steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But, O heart, 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 O bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. O Captain, my Captain, rise up and hear the bells, rise up. For you the flag is flung, for you the bugle trills, for you bouquets and ribbon wreaths, for you and shores a crowding, for you they call and swaying mass, their eager faces turning. Here, Captain, dear father, the arms beneath your head, it is some dream that on the deck you've fallen cold and dead. My captain does not answer, his lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm. He has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored safe and sound, its voyage closed and done. From fearful trip the victor ship comes in with object won. Exalt, O shores, and ring, O bells, but I with mournful tread walk the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. That's about Abraham Lincoln, and that's when they Walt Whitman wrote that, and that was a beginning celebrations of Veterans Day back then.
That's good, Mike.
So,
And it was the poem in the Dead Poets Society.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
the Live Poet Society. But it was really good. The Veterans Day Parade, interestingly enough, I rode with the commissioners, and we had a very entertaining time. And then when I got back, they came and got me. The Republican booth was still lining, float was still lining up, and I rode on it, so I got to be in the parade twice.
Once is Doug and once is Mike.
And the second time I walked and passed out candy. But it was a really great parade.
Yeah, it was.
And I don't know how many entries they had, but
240 something.
Well, I saw 238 when I was standing out waiting before I left to go. But there were more, like, it was kind of like there were several cars, like all the antique cars were one entry. So there were
Yeah, that's
a lot
right.
more cars
That's right.
and participants than that.
Oh, it was backed
But
up.
it was.
yeah.
It was backed up until I stayed until they were the horses came through and they had the street machine cleaning up after the horses before I left to go get Mia. So I think it was 238.
What were they cleaning up?
The horse manure.
Oh.
They were following the horse. The horses came in last.
Mike knew what you would say. He just being Mike.
So my granddaughter was in the Lansing group.
Yep.
The band and parade. She was the cheerleader.
I was in dance. My granddaughter's in dance school.
Right.
Yeah.
So. Okay, it was the parade. Then I'm getting ready to go to a finance committee meeting for the Kansas City Transit Authority. So.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow I'm going to go to with the Transit Authority. They have a table at the annual meeting for the community development statewide. A regional. Actually, it's regional.
I just have one thing, and it goes along with what Mike was saying. The Veterans Parade was something else. You know, living in a military family, till my dad kicked me out at 19, I got to enjoy traveling the world, something like that. But we will never be able to pay our past, our present, or our future military folks for all they've done and all they've given. I don't think there's anything we can do except try to honor them for what they've done. It takes a lot to put your life on the line for anybody, but especially for an entire nation. So hats off to them.
I agree. Largest Veterans Day parade west of the Mississippi, they
It was
say.
a great.
So when you read that, it reminded me, my grandpa
It was.
served on the Arizona. My dad was in the Air Force.
Yeah, that's
My
right.
uncle
You told
was
me
a tank
that.
commander in the Korean War, and the list goes on. So I really appreciate all the veterans.
Yeah, honor those people.
That's all I have.
I don't
Doug.
have anything. So motion to adjourn.
Second.
I
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.